Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 3 of High Rollers, the review series for the most expensive classics that feature on GT6. And in this episode we're featuring a car which is really completely underestimated by most players and overlooked, perhaps understandably, in favour of its younger and more famous sibling. It is of course the Chaparral 2D. And it is overlooked for most people by the 2J for obvious reasons. The 2J is one of the most OP vehicles in the game and also in real life. Personally, I believe the 2J is the most important racing car of all time because it was 40 or 50 years ahead of the game, and no other racing car has been that far ahead of the game. But anyway, I'm even overshadowing the 2J myself by saying that because... or overshadowing the 2D, I should say, because the 2D may not have the fancy fan system, it may not be as renowned as the 2J, but it is a brilliant car in its own right, as pretty much every Chaparral has been. It's one of my favourite manufacturers, even though they don't make road vehicles, and for racing, it is a formidable manufacturer and a team. It's just so revolutionary, it blows everything else out of the water. Now the 2D is a different class of vehicle to the 2J. The 2J is a Can-Am class vehicle, which is basically just do whatever you want. They didn't really have many rules back then. You could have as much power and as little weight as you wanted within reason. And the 2D is not. The 2D is a GT endurance racer. Now, this is a 3.75 million credit car. So it's pretty expensive. And although some vehicles like the GT40 have the advantage that they're a lot easier for the average Joe to save up for, the 2D is not. The 2D is in, or starting to be in, big money territory, especially when for 4.5 million you can have the Legend itself. So why buy the 2D? What does it have to offer to make it worth that kind of money? Well, fully tuned, it sits at a perhaps surprisingly high 683 pp. So it has one of the highest pp's of any classic vehicle in the game. And that is a good indicator of how good it's going to be. The fully tuned power is 785 horsepower, which again is very high for a classic. And it weighs in at just 771 kilos. And thanks to this, it has a colossal power to weight ratio of over 1,000 horsepower per tonne. It's actually 1,018 horsepower per tonne, which again is among the absolute highest, not only in the classic category, but in the game in general. Incidentally, it also produces 605 pound-feet of torque, so it's got plenty of torque, plenty of power, and hardly any weight to shift. It's a mid-engine car, fairly obviously, and rear-wheel drive, again, fairly obviously. Visually, it's, in my opinion, a very pretty little car. Looks kind of like a shrunken GT40. And in real life, it was a successful machine. But what does it have to offer on the game? Well, like the 2J, the 2D has a 3-speed gearbox. And this is kind of its main downside. Because although in its day that wasn't a downside, in the game it is. Because the simple fact is you can do more when you have more gears. And having only 3 gears to work with does limit what you want the car to be good at. And when you've only got 3 gears to work with, it's very difficult to make the car have both good acceleration and good top-end speed. So you can tune it to have excellent acceleration, one of the quickest classics, and incidentally it can also outrun many modern racing cars, or you can have good top speed but sacrifice that acceleration. Now when I say it has good top speed, it really does. It does over 260 miles per hour, and it doesn't have NOS, and that's without draft, so it is a seriously quick little car. But in that state, the acceleration off the line is chronically slow. Now you can tune it to be much quicker off the line, but then you do lose a lot of top speed. To get the kind of acceleration to really take on the modern rivals off the line, you will be reducing your top speed to around the 200 to 220 mph region, which although for most tracks is good enough, the acceleration gets there so quickly that it can sometimes feel a bit stunted. It's not stunted, but because you get there so fast, it feels like it is. Now, handling wise, as we said, it does not have the ground effect fan system like the 2J has. That said, it is an excellent handling car. It has among the smoothest handling of any of the racing cars in the game, classics or otherwise, and it's actually very easy to drive. And the fact that it has sluggish gearing, depending on how you set it up, actually makes it easier to drive for less experienced race drivers, especially for people who have less experience driving either classics or just hugely powerful racing cars in general. That sluggishness actually makes it a lot easier to control. It makes your reaction times not need to be anywhere near as quick, and just a much easier overall driving experience while still being incredibly quick. Now, the way the gearbox works with the engine gives it performance which is something akin to a gas turbine vehicle, in that it's very sluggish low end, but once it picks up, it really picks up. The mid-range acceleration on both of the Chaparral models is immensely fast, and the top end acceleration as well. Basically, the great thing about a Chaparral is the faster you go, the quicker you get there. So the acceleration becomes better and better the higher through the rev range you get, and the higher through your gears you get. Whereas with most vehicles it works in the opposite way. You get most of your best acceleration low end, and then it peters off up to your maximum speed. So Chaparrals definitely aren't perfect. The 2J is not a perfect car, neither is the 2D, but they are excellent all-round racing machines. And is it worth the money? Well, if you're going to spend that kind of money, I'd say yes, because not only is it a great collector's piece, but it's also hugely competitive. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.